1. I was treated like a canary, kept for 10 years. He never promised me a wedding until the day I died. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back 10 years ago, determined to avoid reliving that nightmare. The first thing I did after being reborn was find his future rival. Back then, the guy was just a broke mechanic. I slapped my bank card on the table. "Wanna get married? I'll give you all my salary after we're hitched." He gritted his teeth. "I'll agree for a monthly salary of $3,000. So I proposed to Jack. At that moment, he had a cigarette dangling from his lips. "What do you see in a guy like me?" I thought hard, then blurted out, "You're handsome?" Heh. His scoff made my face burn with embarrassment, but I mustered the courage to ask, "So, will you say yes?" Jack didn't answer immediately. He just stared me down as if he could see right through my little scheme. I held his gaze, hoping he'd see my sincerity. After a long pause, he laughed. With a not too serious tone, he said, "If a wife's coming for free, why refuse?" And just like that, I was married. It all happened the second day after my time travel. Holding our little red marriage book, I felt a lingering sense of disbelief. In my past life, I actually met Jack once. It was during my 7th year of being kept captive by Felix. I had escaped penniless and ran into Jack on the street. By then, he was a well-known entrepreneur, dressed sharply, and had an aura that screamed, "Don't come near me." I begged him for help. Jack found me a place to stay and got me a ticket to leave. But in the end, Felix still found me. Not wanting to dwell on those memories, I looked up and asked Jack where to next. "I'm taking you home," he replied. I was puzzled. "Aren't we married?" So, don't you plan on taking me home?" Jack was staying in an undeveloped complex. The building wasn't even fully constructed yet. It was mostly construction workers bustling around. "Used to work here as a laborer. Know the foreman well. I'm crashing here till it's finished, no rent," he explained, noticing my confused look. The place had a raw industrial vibe. Inside, it was just a metal cot, bare bones. No flush toilet in the bathroom, just a faucet for bathing. Jack looked at me. "Regret it?" "There's still time to run." "No regrets." I put my luggage down. "We'll be sharing this bed, right? Isn't it a bit small?" Jack squinted at me. "It's enough." That night, I lay on Jack's cot. He just spread a couple of newspapers and lay down on the floor. There weren't any curtains, and the moonlight poured in through the glass. "Jack, you asleep?" "Yeah." Worried he'd catch a cold, I shifted over a little on the bed. "Wanna come up here and sleep?" The bed was small, but we could make it work. After a few seconds of silence, Jack said, "If I come up, you won't be sleeping." I clutched the blanket, whispering, "I don't mind." As soon as I spoke, Jack moved like a beast with permission, pinning me beneath him. I froze, instinctively turning my head away. He eased off the pressure, and I could see in the moonlight his face carried a hint of mockery. "Don't make promises you can't keep." "I tend to take things seriously," he said, as he moved back to his spot on the newspaper. Seeing his intention, I grabbed the hem of his shirt. Fingers brushing against his skin sent a shiver through him, and he looked at me, eyes shadowed. With a tight smile, I insisted, "I mean it." Afraid he'd refuse, I gave a teasing scratch inside his shirt. Jack's eyes darkened. "Now you've got no choice." Unlike Felix, who sculpted his muscles at the gym, Jack's physique came from years of hard work. His skin was a natural tan, muscles solid and powerful. Eventually, I was overwhelmed, sobbing into convulsions before he stopped. He kissed away my tears brusquely, muttering, "Such a crybaby." His tone held irritation. Still hurting all over, his careless comment only made me turn away in annoyance. He didn't bother trying to comfort me, either, just got up to do who knows what. Huddled in my blanket, my mind revolved around the past. In my last life, I was Felix's canary for 10 years. Finally freed by death. Thought it was heaven's mercy, granting me a do-over. Didn't expect Jack to be such a different person. Suddenly, a warm towel was over my face, interrupting my tears. Jack had returned, holding a basin and another towel. Crying? I wasn't, I lied. Jack haphazardly wiped my face, and then turned to wring out the towel. "What are you doing?" "No hot water here, can't shower." "Wipe down a bit, you'll feel better." He was right, I felt sticky all over. Putting aside my anger, I blushed as I tried to grab the towel. "I can do it myself." "Stay put." Ignoring my protests, Jack flipped the blanket away and started wiping me down with the warm towel. Time passed, and I heard Jack say, "Stop sulking. Next time I'll go easy on you." There was an awkwardness in his voice. My face heated as a smile tugged at my lips. I hid my face under the blanket. The next morning, when I woke up, Jack was already dressed. 2 buns were on the low table. No idea when he'd gone out to get them. "Water's heated up. After you wash up, I'll drop you at work." "No need, I'll go myself." Jack glanced at me. "Too many workers around here. It's not safe for a little girl like you." Then he added, "Call me when you're done for the day. I'll pick you up." After slowly washing up, I finally noticed the bank card on the table. The one I'd handed over when proposing to Jack. "Don't forget the card." Jack glanced at it. "Keep it. I'm not about to use a woman's money." Liar. He's broke as hell. But since he didn't want it, I didn't argue. I was thinking maybe I could use the savings in my account to buy a house. If Jack isn't on board, at least I could get a new bed. It might not be a golden house like my past life. But looking at Jack, I feel inexplicably grounded. This good mood lasted until I got to work. As soon as I entered the office, Kate walked over with a mysterious vibe. "Alice, I've got some good news for you." She whispered, "My cousin is interested in you." "Me?" She pulled me aside, still keeping that mysterious tone. "My cousin isn't just anyone. He's super handsome, nice, a Cambridge grad, and his dad is the richest person around. So many rich girls try to get with him, but he never gives them the time of day. Yesterday he asked me to set you 2 up." Kate's eyes sparkled. "Girl, your good days are here. Cambridge grad. Dad is the richest guy." A name suddenly popped into my mind. My face went pale. I tried to control my expression, and politely declined with as calm a voice as I could muster. "I might have to apologize to your cousin. I'm not that fortunate. I'm married." Kate didn't believe me. "We've worked together for a year. You didn't have anyone. And now you're suddenly married?" "Really? I've got the marriage certificate. The wedding hasn't happened yet, but I'll send you an invite when it does." I smiled. "I've got 2 classes soon. Need to head to the classroom." With that, I quickly walked away. It wasn't until I got out the door that I felt all my strength leave me. Felix. He wasn't supposed to show up until later in my last life. Why would he show up so early this time? And how did he know I taught at the same elementary school as Kate? I reassured myself, in this life I'm married now, I have Jack. I won't repeat the past. The sudden appearance of Felix really shook me. I was distracted all day. My right eyelid kept twitching, like something was going to happen. Sure enough, when I left work and walked out the school gate, a black car was parked there. The car brand was flashy. Seeing me, the man inside came out holding a bouquet of roses. "Miss Alice," he called out, smiling as he introduced himself. "Sorry for interrupting. I'm Felix, Kate's cousin." There were students leaving school and parents picking them up all around. Felix's bouquet was eye-catching and bold. Someone recognized me and started clapping. They egged me on to accept him. My face went white. "What do you want?" "Don't be nervous. I just wanted to meet you." Felix's smile curled up smoothly. "I happened to see you when waiting for Kate, and felt a special connection. So I came by today. No pressure, just think of me as a friend." No matter how Felix tried to act cool, I could feel the craziness in his eyes. In my helplessness, I suddenly saw Jack in the corner. He was straddling an old motorcycle, a cigarette in his mouth, looking at me with a kind of indifference. Like a drowning person finding a piece of wood, I ran over to him. Jack's familiar scent of motor oil helped me regain calm. I turned around to Felix. "I explained to Kate before, I'm married." Felix clearly didn't see that coming. His smile froze. His gaze slid to Jack, and a flash of hatred crossed his eyes. Though he covered it up quickly, I caught it. Hate. This should be his first time seeing Jack. Why would he hate him? Felix quickly recomposed himself. "I was presumptuous. Didn't check your personal status beforehand, Miss Alice. I can't take back these flowers, so I'll just wish you two a happy marriage." He offered the bouquet. "Flowers for a beautiful lady. Hope your husband doesn't mind." Before I could say anything, Jack suddenly smiled. "Who says I don't mind?" He looked at Felix. "I'm a petty guy. Can't stand my beautiful wife accepting stuff from others." Then Jack put a small pink helmet on my head. Put it on. Seeing the brand new helmet, my mood suddenly lifted. I couldn't help but ask, did you buy this for me? Found it in the trash. I grinned. Can you find a blue one next time? I like blue. Jack raised an eyebrow, acting like he's going to take the helmet back. I quickly secured it on my head, tapping it with my fingers. Does it look good? There was a hint of amusement in Jack's eyes. He pulled down the visor in front of the helmet. Silly girl. When I turned around, Felix was already gone. After this incident, everyone knew my husband worked at a repair shop. During recess, I heard teachers gossiping. Looks couldn't help her find a better husband. You guys didn't see that horrible motorcycle he drives. Sounded like a tractor. When I walked in, someone teased Alice. Where's your husband's shop? My husband just got a Benz. We can give your guy some business. Sure, I'll send you the address later. Kate couldn't take it anymore. She dragged me out of the office. Are you stupid or something? They're bullying you. And you're just gonna take it? You're pretty and have a decent job. Why do you settle for? Kate hesitated, then continued, I'm blunt, but don't take it the wrong way. You just graduated and got fooled. Thinking love beats bread only leads to regret. Seriously, think about my cousin. He doesn't mind you've been married before. Kate, nice bag. I cut her off, nodding to the Hermes on her desk. New? Kate stopped blushing. Yeah. Kate's a salary worker. Who gave her the bag, and why was obvious? I didn't call her out. My husband and I are fine. What kind of life we lead is our business. Stop bringing him up. I don't like it. That night after work, Jack didn't have his motorcycle. Where's your bike? Sold it. He didn't explain further, just smirked. Let's go. 3. Jack was dragging me along, but in a direction that was different from usual. I had no idea what Jack was up to. After walking a few hundred meters, we stopped near my school, at a complex. 3rd floor, let's go check it out. I had a hunch, but I couldn't believe it. I slowly made my way to the 3rd floor, where the door to a middle unit was wide open. Pushing the door open, I entered a small 2-bedroom apartment. It wasn't big, but it was warmly decorated. The curtains were the color of the sky, slightly lifted by the breeze. The sunset poured through the windows, flooding the room with a golden glow. He still remembered I liked blue. I couldn't quite describe the feeling. I've lived in luxurious villas and rundown apartments. But in this moment, my heart felt like it was about to burst with joy. You sold the motorcycle and rented this place? The area near the school had old buildings, but the prices weren't low. Jack probably didn't have enough money for the first month's rent and the deposit. Jack didn't mention the motorcycle, and just said, this place is closer to your school, convenient for commuting. Plus, the old place didn't have hot water, and you can't handle that. Before he finished speaking, I turned and hugged Jack's waist. Jack was stunned by my sudden hug. He was dazed for a moment, then wrapped his arms around my back. All right, now's not the time to cry. Save the tears for tonight, okay? Such a tease. That night, Jack did make me cry, and he kissed the corner of my mouth as he held me. You were right, a double bed really is better than a single one. We moved in too late. When did I ever say that? I held back, resisting the urge to kick him out of bed. The next day, a weekend, Jack and I planned to pick up stuff from the old place. But by afternoon Jack hadn't come home. I might not have time today. Something came up at the factory. Jack called me in the middle of it. I didn't think much of it. I'll just go on my own. There wasn't much to get, just a suitcase. Jack's side was chaotic. I didn't catch much of his reply before hanging up. Jack used to not let me go there alone. It was mainly because of all the workers. Jack always thought it was unsafe. But now, in broad daylight, I thought it'd be fine to just pick up some things. I didn't expect that as soon as I entered the apartment, 3 or 4 workers followed me in. Does the young lady live here alone? I felt uneasy. Who are you? Get out. We work here, why should we leave? The leader chuckled. We've been watching you with that guy. You both sure know how to have fun. How about you have some fun with us? The place was too empty. I couldn't find anything to defend myself. Biting my lip, I turned to run out. The guy was quick, grabbing my hair and throwing me onto the floor. Nice body, been waiting for today. He started to press down on me. I struggled hard, screaming. Just as his hand was about to touch my clothes, the door suddenly burst open, and the guy on me was knocked to the ground. The other two workers seemed ready to step in. I'm the developer here. Are you sure you want to mess with me? The three men looked at each other, judging the truth of his words. A moment later, they swore and ran off. Felix took off his suit jacket, putting it over me, and told his assistant, "Find them. You know what to do." The assistant nodded and walked out. Felix then looked down. "Remember me?" My hand holding the jacket turned pale. "No, I don't." I handed the jacket back, grabbed my suitcase. "Thanks for the help today." As I walked past him, Felix suddenly grabbed my wrist. "You're scared of me, aren't you?" "We're not close. Why should I be scared?" "True." Felix released my hand. "So, what brings you here?" "As far as I know, this area is still under construction." "That's none of your business." "True, but this is my property." Felix stared at me. "Living here is illegal." "What if I sued Jack for it?" "What do you want?" "I want you." Felix was blunt. "Alice, from the start, I told you I wanted you. I've also told you I'm married. That's not my problem." I pressed my lips together. He bent down to meet my gaze. "That guy can't give you the life you want. You, a pearl, shouldn't get dusty in his hands. Choosing between your man getting jailed or living well with me, it's up to you." I clenched my suitcase, turned and walked out. This time Felix didn't stop me. Once outside the complex, I realized I was trembling uncontrollably. 3 workers followed me in, and Felix just happened to rescue me. I couldn't believe this was a coincidence. Living again in this life. Felix hasn't changed. If he wants something, he'll get it by any means. I tried calling Jack a few more times, but nobody answered. When evening came, I knew something was wrong. Since our marriage, Jack never came home this late. I ran to his workplace. It was chaotic. I stopped a janitor. "Do you know where Jack is?" "Jack. He's at the hospital." I was stunned. "What happened?" The janitor shook his head. "Such misfortune, running into such thugs." After I figured out the address, I rushed to the hospital, finding Jack being wheeled out of a room. He had 2 bloodied scratches on his face, and his right arm was in a cast. His clothes were muddy, with red stains here and there. I couldn't hold back tears. "Jack, what are you doing here?" He walked over, using his other hand to wipe my face. "Come on. I'm not dead, why cry?" Even now he's joking. I was about to get angry when I heard a voice. 4. "Damn, Jack, your wife is gorgeous, she's like a fairy." Then he mumbled, "No wonder you don't hang with us at night anymore. If I had such a beautiful wife, I wouldn't either." It was then I noticed that there was another guy standing behind Jack. He seemed young, and was staring at me intently. His gaze was so clear that it wasn't annoying at all. His straightforward compliment made me a bit shy. But Jack just chuckled and said, "Get away from my wife." After the doctor confirmed that aside from a minor fracture in his right hand, everything else was just superficial wounds, I finally relaxed. "How did you get hurt like this?" Before Jack could say anything, the young guy spoke up. "We ran into some jerk today. His car was totally fine, but he insisted Jack messed it up and wanted us to pay. We refused, and he brought a bunch of people to trash the shop." "Didn't you call the police?" "What's the point? Anyone with a license plate of 5/8 isn't someone you can mess with unless you're powerful." 5/8. I suddenly remembered something. What kind of car was it? A black Hummer. The kid sighed. "Getting involved with someone like that. What are we gonna do, Jack? Do you think the boss will blame us?" After that, I didn't really hear anything. Everything in front of me started fading to black. It was Felix again. Suddenly a hand grabbed my cheek. I yelped softly and looked into Jack's playful eyes. Seeing how casual he was, I asked, "Aren't you worried?" "Worried about what?" "About what happens next." Jack scoffed. "So what if I lose the job? I've got my wife to support me. Hand over that $3,000 every month, right?" He brought up my proposal from back then, which made me blush. I quietly agreed. "You can have all my money." Jack flicked my forehead and called me a dummy. Jack got fired. I heard the boss calling him. "I'm sorry about this, but that guy is too powerful, and there's nothing I can do." Jack was smoking, his face unreadable. After hanging up, he called me wifey. I thought he was going to tell me about getting fired, and was preparing to comfort him. But instead he said, "I think I need a bath. Help me out." Me? I looked up to see he wasn't upset at all. And now he needed help with bathing? I blushed fiercely. "Why are you always thinking about this kind of thing?" What kind of thing? Jack raised an eyebrow. My right arm's in a cast, can't get it wet. I just need you to run my bath. Then he leaned closer and whispered, or, are you thinking of something else? Say it, and I'll risk this arm just to satisfy you. I was so embarrassed and angry I forgot about his firing. I stormed off to the bathroom. I could still hear him laughing happily behind me. Later, while bathing, Jack noticed the marks on my neck. His hand gently brushed my throat and he frowned. What happened here? Only then did I realize I had a blood mark and a few bruises on my neck. Probably from struggling earlier that day. I hastily covered it with my hair. I just hurt myself by accident. Jack sneered. Accidentally strangled yourself and scratched your neck? I had no choice but to come clean. I went by the empty apartment to grab something, and someone followed me. Seeing Jack's sudden dark expression, I quickly explained, but nothing serious happened. Someone saved me. Jack didn't reply. We stood there frozen. As the mist cleared, a slight chill filled the cramped bathroom. A shiver ran through me. Jack snapped back into action and wrapped me in a towel. I tugged at his hand. Are you mad? I shouldn't have let you go on your own. His eyes were filled with pain and regret. But it wasn't his fault, it was mine. I couldn't hold it in any longer, and blurted out everything I knew. It's all Felix's doing. The guy who sent roses to my school. The Hummer's his. He trashed the shop to cause trouble for you. The workers who came to save me were hired by him. He even knows we live nearby and plans to sue you. I don't know why he's so terrible and won't leave me alone. I'm sorry, it's all because of me. I couldn't go on and broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. I wanted to cry all the grievances of this life, and the last life out loud. I didn't understand. Why wouldn't Felix leave me alone when I never bothered him? Seeing my tears, Jack wiped my face with the towel. Why you dropping tears like golden beans? Aren't you mad at me? Mad at you for what? For being pretty and too charming? Getting noticed by creeps on the street? This guy. My previous mood was swept away by his words, and I sniffed. Jack, do you regret it? Regret what? Marrying me. Jack dodged the question. Do you regret it? Marrying a broke mechanic who just lost his job? I shook my head vigorously. If my wife doesn't regret it, why would I? Jack's eyebrow lifted. My wife didn't even choose someone like a billionaire's son. She chose me instead, willing to spend her money and life with me. What's there for me to complain about? That line made me want to cry again. And truth be told, I did cry again. Snuggling into Jack's embrace, I managed I love you. Jack didn't expect such a declaration and stiffened. He hugged me tight to his chest, responding in a hoarse voice, your man's right here. After that day, Jack got really busy. Even though he was jobless, he left early and came back late every day. I wasn't sure what he was up to, maybe spooked by the whole Felix situation. Even though we moved next to the school, Jack insisted on dropping me off and picking me up every day. When you're at school, stick with the other teachers, don't wander off, got it? I almost laughed. I'm not a kindergartner, I'm not that fragile. 5. Jack grinned, you're just a kid. Lately though, Jack's been having more outings. Sometimes, if he can't make it, he asks a colleague he met at the hospital to help. I felt a bit awkward and told the guy, it's just a short walk. I can do it myself. Don't bother next time. No way, the guy smirked. Jack gave me this task. I'll complete it or die trying. Besides, a fairy like you needs some looking after. Trying to reason with him didn't work. So I turned to Jack. Keep this up, and people will start saying you're whipped. Jack just rolled his eyes and said, I love spoiling my woman. It's no one's business. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The next day at work, Kate pulled me aside all secret-like and showed me her phone. Is this your husband? I looked. It was a photo of Jack and a woman having drinks. She looked very glamorous. Besides Jack, there were 4 or 5 other guys surrounding the woman. The room was dimly lit, so I couldn't see Jack's expression. But it was definitely him. My friend took this at a bar. I thought the guy looked like him, Kate said, staring at me. I heard he got fired from the mechanic shop. Now he's just a hoodlum. Look at him now, even selling himself to entertain women. Is this the true love you talked about? Be careful not to catch anything. Done talking? I asked, my face serious. Kate, you've talked down about my husband, followed him, taken photos, and tried to get us to divorce repeatedly. What are you really after? Felix may have given you something. But I'm not dumb. Unless it's work-related, don't come to me again. Then I walked into the office. Kate came in a little later, her eyes red. I overheard some co-workers comforting her, likely saying I was ungrateful. That night, Jack came home very late. Just got back. Yeah. I sniffed. How much did you drink? Jack playfully rubbed his face against mine. You judging me, huh? I dodged with a laugh. And he hugged me close with a sigh. It's been tough for you lately. I hugged him back and shook my head. The next morning, I smelled perfume on Jack's shirt. The cuff had a faint lipstick stain. I thought of the photo Kate showed me, and felt a pang of sourness. If it were possible, I'd rather Jack just be a mechanic. Days went by, and I never expected to stumble upon Jack and a woman together. That day, I was out shopping with some teachers. We passed an expensive restaurant. One teacher tugged at my bag and awkwardly asked Alice, "Doesn't that guy look like your husband?" I looked over. A man was sitting by the window with a well-groomed woman. My heart sank. It wasn't just a resemblance. It was him. My face dropped, and my coworker probably noticed, awkwardly laughing. It must be work-related. They seemed to be conversing normally. I just nodded, not wanting to look anymore. Let's go. As I turned away, a colleague suddenly shrieked, "Alice, your husband." My heart tightened. He flipped the table. Me. I spun around to see Jack, kicking the table over. He looked down at the pale woman with a smirk. I rushed over just in time to hear Jack say, "With your looks, you think I'll fall for you? Please." Then he strode out, locking eyes with me, deflated like a little lion cub caught in the act. "Wife." He frowned and explained, "I don't usually hit women. It was an accident." My long legs kicked the table. I chuckled, "I'm not even mad at you." Jack relaxed, grabbed my hand and smirked. "Let's head home?" Once home, I found out Jack had been dealing with Felix's sister. The sales job is just a cover. It's actually to get close to her, Jack chuckled. Lisa's wild, likes young guys and has done a lot of crazy stuff. I've been cozying up to her for insider info, and sold it to a rival firm. It'll probably hit the news tomorrow. It's not huge, but it'll keep the Smiths busy for a while. With them distracted, Felix won't bother you. You did all this just to keep Felix away from me? In a few days, I might have to head to City A. I won't feel safe if Felix is still around. Knowing Jack might leave made me reluctant. Why leaving so suddenly? How long will you be gone? A week or so. If things go well, I might be on the road a lot more. Turns out Jack's been busy with a trucking company. I met some contacts while fixing cars, leased a few trucks and started taking orders. Everything's new, so I have to do it all myself. He ruffled my hair with a grin. Wait for me. The day Jack left, I slipped a card with $7,000 of my savings into his pocket. I left a note. You'll need money on the road. The password is our birthdays. Come back safe. After Jack left, Lisa's scandal hit the headlines. It was played up a lot, pulling in more drama, becoming big news. Felix was busy and didn't appear again. Life got easier for me. At the end of the semester, the school was selecting an excellent teacher for an award. Originally, they planned to nominate me, but on the day the list came out, Kate's name was there instead. School leadership apologized, saying it was a directive from above. We all knew the real reason. After leaving the principal's office, I saw Kate. 6. Ever since the photo incident, we haven't really talked much. Kate hummed softly when she walked by me but didn't say anything. At first, this didn't bother me at all. But later that night, when I was on a video call with Jack, I couldn't help but feel a bit upset. I tried hard not to cry, my lips pouting. Jack noticed something was up. "What's going on?" he asked. I didn't want him to worry, so I said, "Oh, it's just a movie I watched." And it got me a little down. He laughed softly and called me a silly girl. After the call, I gave my face a good smack. I couldn't believe how much I'd regressed. In my previous life, though my dad was unjustly jailed and my mom got seriously ill, I pulled through without shedding a tear. But somehow, a small thing like this made me cry in front of Jack. Sometime around midnight, when I'd just dozed off, I heard the door lock turn. Fear gripped me. Worried that Felix might be causing trouble, I grabbed a baseball bat from beside my bed and stood ready behind the door. The door swung open in the next second. I swung the bat, but whoever it was seemed prepared and caught it with ease. I then heard a familiar teasing voice say, "What's this? Got yourself a lover outside, and now planning to murder your hubby?" Surprised, I exclaimed, "Honey, what are you doing here?" "Wife's feeling down. It's my duty to be here with you," he replied. "But how did you know I was upset?" "I'm not blind. Your acting might work on others, but not on me." And just like that, the tears I'd held back fell again. Jack sighed and called me his little crybaby. Jack was only able to stay for a night. The next morning he had to catch a train. I didn't want him to go, but he kissed my forehead and said, "Our company's registration here in Deep State was completed recently. Come visit me during the summer break." I nodded eagerly and started counting down the days. After another 2 weeks, it was finally vacation time. I couldn't wait to buy a ticket to City A. But only once Jack drove me to his company did I realize this was something different. I had assumed Jack was doing a small transport business, owning a few trucks to move goods. But it turned out to be a logistics company, combining e-commerce, transportation, and delivery services. Although it was still growing, they'd already secured a lot of business. Shocked, I asked, "How did you come up with this?" I recalled how in my past life, Jack never moved to City A. He was a simple mechanic who earned great esteem from an expat boss, and then transitioned into an international auto group. Later, he gathered a team to focus on chip development, and made a fortune as his business grew. But now his path had changed because of me. He left the workshop earlier, and didn't get to meet the boss. Instead, he moved to City A and started this logistics venture. The e-commerce industry has grown rapidly in City A, and there's a gap in logistics. I know a thing or two about cars, so I invested some money I'd made from cars into this, Jack explained. Though Jack didn't mention it, I knew another reason was how restricted he'd be starting a business in our home city, Sea City, with the Smiths dominating there. Because of me, he had to move away. I felt both touched and impressed by his vision. I truly believed Jack's logistics business would grow into a key player in the e-commerce sector in City A. Jack had already rented us a small 2-bedroom apartment. It was about the same size as our place in Sea City, but the rent was almost 3 times higher. "Things are pricey here, and I've put most of my money into the company," Jack confessed, blushing slightly. "I did use some money from your account. It's yours from the start anyway." He planted a kiss on my lips and promised, "Eventually, all my earnings will be for you." With the company registered, we couldn't keep traveling back and forth. I wasn't particularly fond of Sea City, so we discussed me quitting my job to move here as well. I stayed until the new school term to handle my resignation. At that time, Jack's logistics firm had gained some prominence, and he'd even been interviewed a few times as an innovative startup leader. One day, the colleague who'd mentioned servicing their Mercedes with Jack approached me. "We saw your husband on TV the other day. I told you Jack is a gem, and now look how successful he is." Another colleague chimed in, "Alice, you've got quite an eye. If you know other promising talents, share them with us." I recognized these faces. They were the same ones who talked behind our backs before. Not interested in much interaction, I entertained their small talk courteously. "Alice, I heard someone call me as I was about to leave campus." It was Kate. She approached me in her business attire, sounding stern. "I owe you an apology for trying to pair you with my cousin out of selfishness." "You don't owe me an apology for that," I said, pressing my lips together. "Wait," she grabbed my arm. "Alice, I'm sorry. I was forced into it." Hearing that, I blacked out. When I woke up, I was lying on a soft bed in a spacious room. Through the large windows, I saw roses blossoming outside. This was the villa I'd lived in for a decade. My mind spun, struggling to distinguish between present and past. Had I not died? Was everything just a dream? While lost in thought, Felix walked into the room. "You're awake?" I tried to sit up but quickly realized I had no strength. "Don't bother struggling. You can't move." I remembered Kate just before I passed out. "Did you do this?" "Felix, you know detaining someone is illegal, right?" He burst into laughter as if I'd told a joke. "Detaining? Alice, you've always belonged to me." He walked over, eyes gleaming with a madness. "You don't know, but we're meant to be together, living right here." And suddenly, everything fell into place. 7. Why can't I shake off Felix, no matter how cautiously I try to avoid him? Turns out he was reborn too. I finally calmed down. Were we always a pair, Felix? Every day with you felt like a year. I was miserable. If you hadn't threatened me using my parents, there's no way I would have stayed with you. Felix looked shocked. You? That's right, I remember everything too. I looked at Felix. So in this lifetime, I'm not giving you another chance to hurt me. I would never think of hurting you. No, Alice, you love me. We've been together for 10 years. That was my mistake. I should have never left you alone in the villa. Otherwise, you wouldn't have. He didn't finish. But I knew he meant that I wouldn't have died. Hearing that made me want to laugh. Felix, don't you get it? After my parents passed, the only reason I stayed by your side was to gather evidence and avenge them. I wanted to see you rot in prison, or else I'd never be satisfied. You've been wondering why your company's secrets got leaked, and how the police found out about those crimes you thought were so well hidden? That was all me. My goal was to make sure you paid for your blood debts. Enough. It's not enough. I chimed in. After you went to prison, I set the fire, because I wanted you to lose everything, including everything tainted by him. My once pure self. Why, Felix? I loved you so much. Why? In the past life, I rejected Felix. He tricked my dad into taking a high-interest loan and forced me to be with him. Dad turned himself in to avoid me being wronged. Mom was angered to illness and Felix cut off her medical resources, forcing me into the villa. I sneered at Felix. Love, you think you deserve to utter that word? I stood up from the bed, moving my restraints a bit. Felix was stunned. How did I get free? I asked coldly. Last time you drugged me, making me lose myself to you. I'm not making the same mistake twice. I signaled outside and hidden cops burst in. Felix went mad. Still talking to me, Alice. Let's forget everything and start over, please. I don't care about what you did. I forgive you. That's when I saw Jack slowly appear at the door. I quickly ran towards him. As I passed Felix, I whispered, but I don't forgive you. Felix was taken away. I collapsed into Jack's arms, feeling utterly exhausted. Honey, you got no questions for me? I asked. Jack shook his head. It's all in the past now. Yeah, it's all behind us. All the drama and wrongs are no longer my concern. From now on, I'm just Jack's wife. When you have time, come visit my parents with me. Jack smiled and said sure. From the day I was reborn, I had my parents leave City C, using some excuse. They went back to our countryside home. They retired early and lived quite comfortably. They weren't aware of my marriage with Jack, and I didn't have the courage to tell them. During New Year, Jack took a bunch of gifts to my family's place, proposing as well. By March that year, we finally had our wedding. Living twice, it was my first time wearing a wedding dress. Jack, who lost his parents young, had no family of his own. So only my family could come. As he bowed and offered tea, calling them Mom and Dad, I noticed tears glimmer at the corners of his eyes. For some reason, I thought of my past life. When I died, Jack was nearly 40 and still single. There were no rumors about him with anyone, almost like he wasn't of this world. If you hadn't married me, what type of wife do you think you'd look for? I couldn't help but ask Jack one night. I don't know. Jack paused. I probably wouldn't look. I'd gotten used to being alone. Then why did you agree to marry me? At that, Jack seemed to reminisce. Then he smiled and said, I just figured having someone around wouldn't be bad. Especially such a beautiful wife. I widened my eyes. So, you're saying you were all about looks? I don't think so. Especially since you took my debit card, Jack joked, trying not to laugh. I guess I was swayed by money too. Seeing my pout, Jack kissed my forehead. Thank you, my wife, for giving me a home. No, I should be the one thanking Jack. Living again allowed me to truly find love. The end.